My name is Joanne. I am a codependent and Al-Anon. I get to talk about passing on a message of hope. And I mean, that to me is one of the best messages you can pass on. It would be horrible to pass on a message of hopelessness, which maybe I've done in the past without knowing it. But my hope now is to be able to pass on this message of hope to others. There's, I think, of like three different contexts that this may even apply to. One would be it is taken as like the step 12 in any 12-step program. So it's passing on this message through LifeLab. If you've been through LifeLab, you'll know that you get a pace setter. And so that pace setter actually gets to also share their experience, strength, and hope with you. Hold on a second, there we go. Or even if you are a believer in Jesus, if you're a Christian, that's also something that Jesus asked us to do and said, hey, this is vital to your life, is to pass on a message of the gospel, that there's good news. And not only doing that, not even just passing on this message, but the message is an actionable message that calls us to make disciples. And so there's kind of this three-part, I guess, as we think about what this passing on the message of hope is. And so I kind of thought there was two main parts in the big book. So if you have this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous around, that would be great. Pick it up. We're going to refer to it a lot. If you don't have it, no worries. Just maybe focus, close your eyes, listen, and we'll go through it. And so, yeah, I think that like a couple things as I thought about passing on the message and my experience, even with having someone who has done that for me, as of recently in the 12-step process I'm a part of, is that I realized that, first of all, I cannot do it well on my own. Going through these 12 steps or going through LifeLab or going through the Christian life is not helpful to do all by yourself. The thing about our addiction, the thing about our issues, the thing about, Christians call it sin, it isolates us from one another. And so it's like it wants to create like this cloak of like shame and guilt. And actually what recovery does, what going through this work does, what going through the process of LifeLab, or just even as we're, people of faith going through the scripture or anything like that, it invites us into community. It invites us into relationship, and we get to be known. And that is huge. And I think that really taps into the core of what we're like, created like as humans, is we want to belong. We want to know that we're known. We want to know that we're accepted. We want to know that we're loved. And that's a huge piece of our security. And so it was funny. My sponsor, she would tell me, working with you is a blessing, not because Joanne is amazing, but because she'd be like, your working with you actually is of benefit to me, to her. And so she would just like thank me at the beginning of our meetings. And she's like, thanks for helping me out in my recovery today. And it was like really sweet, but it's really true. And I've noticed that too. When I was, working with others as a pace setter in LifeLab, it was so great because I found that I would go through the process for the first time and it would blow my mind, and it was amazing, and it made such a huge impact on my life. But then as I go back into the work, as I work with other people and relate to them and learn from them, but also I'm picking up stuff that I didn't pick up the first time because it was a lot. It was overwhelming. And so this work is cyclical. We're meant to go through it over and over again. It's not like the term is like one and done, or, I think of like as a Christian, it's like, it's not this process of like, all right, perfect, Jesus, I believe in you, over, we're good, I'm going to go on my merry way and see ya in heaven one day. That's not the way that it was designed. And this plan of action is not the way it was designed, to just go through it once and you're done. But we may recover through our minds. Our minds may be renewed. Physical ailments, physical addiction, different things like that may be removed from us by God. But this spiritual malady that we talk about, like a sickness that is deep inside each one of us, we're always working that out with God. It's always a perpetual thing because we're human and we're going to blow it and we're going to make mistakes and we're not going to get it right and perfect. And that's not the point. And so, yeah, I think it was just like, for me too, as I entered into this program, it was so helpful to have someone who had experience that, like, when I was having a terrible day or I'm going through a step or I'm going through something, like to have someone to just be like, point me in the right direction. Like, she would always point me to God, but in the same breath, it was helpful to have a tangible human in front of me that was like, hey, I've been there too. And it gets better. And can I give you a few suggestions? Or, you know, can we pray about this together? And just to have someone cheering you on in this road to health is incredible. And I remember thinking, like, wow, as if you're giving me all of your time to do this. Like, it's a lot. It cost her a lot. Like, my text messages, my, you know, all this kind of stuff, it costs her. And yet she doesn't see it that way. She's like, again, she's like, this is all a part of it. And so I'm going to tell the story kind of on the other side once we're done going through the text. And I've got the experience and privilege to be able to start taking someone through the steps. And it's true, like a lot of the stuff that she would tell me, it's true, like coming out on the other side of it and reworking the work with someone else, but having a bit of that experience now in it is really quite amazing, actually. So, and we'll see this in the text, but this quote of just that this gift has been freely given to me, whether we're Christian, whether we're in PACE setting in LifeLab, or whether we're in a 12-step program, it is a free gift that we're given. And so we get to freely pass it on to others. I'm going to read a quick little blurb here. In the second, I believe it's the forward to the second edition, on page XVI. And I'm going to rush through that one because I want to get to the second half of this guy named Bill W's story. And so I'm just going to read down starting, I believe it's the second paragraph that says, prior to his journey. Here it goes. Prior to his journey to Akron, the broker, who is this guy named Bill W., and who the story's about, had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory that only an alcoholic could help an alcoholic. And I actually want to pause there because I'm tempted to read it through my own lens. I don't know, should I? The people that are on video, should I read it as a codependent or read it as an alcoholic? Codependent, great. So also as a side note, this book became alive to me because I put myself in it and I started to see me in it. And I transcribed words like alcohol to adrenaline or obsessing or controlling or gossip or excitaholic. So you'll hear that as we go. All right, I'm gonna start over then. Prior to his journey to Akron, the broker had worked hard with many codependents on the theory that only a codependent could help a codependent. But he had succeeded only in keeping himself sober. Oh, yes, but he had, yes. The broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear that he might start obsessing again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry his message to another codependent. That codependent turned out to be the Akron physician. Yeah, I'll keep going. This physician had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his codependent dilemma, but he'd failed. But when the broker gave him Dr. Silkworth's description of codependence and its hopelessness, the physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy for his malady with a willingness he had never had before, had been able to muster. He emotionally sobered up, never to obsess again, up to the moment of his death in 1950. This seemed to prove that one codependent could affect another as no non-codependent could. It also indicated that strenuous work, one codependent with another, was vital to permanent recovery. And so I think that that part there, and I end there for this part of just that word vital, it means life-giving. It's life or death. And, you know, for perhaps for someone who's a drug addict, or maybe for someone who's, you know, an alcoholic and is kind of near the end of their, you know, maybe the end of their life can actually go really quick and can end really quickly. And that can be the same for a codependent. It also could be a really long, slow, miserable death, which almost seems worse in a way, to me anyway. And so this is vital to a permanent recovery. We're not looking for a quick fix. This is the thing about recovery that I've learned for sure, is that I can't add recovery into my life. I'm not going to be able to go to the recovery buffet and choose all of the things that I like, that are simple and easy, that make sense to me, that are palatable, and then just take those back and I'm done. No, it's like you got to go through. You have to take all of the things that will properly nourish us. And it is vital to do this work. And it's saying that it's strenuous work, and we work with one another. And that is the end of being able to have this like permanent recovery. And so this service is vital. All right, let's jump now to, where is it? What did I say? Page 13. And so I'm gonna just read through this here, and I'll pause kind of over the next couple pages, but I just thought this word was so good that I couldn't help but just like go through it right now. So here we go. So page 13, last paragraph, it says, "My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple, but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all." And like when I first read that, I remember for the first time, I wrote a note in my margins that said, yes, like if this book isn't like about God, it's amazing just seeing like, this is the thing about any kind of life, following Jesus, doing this pace setting course and giving our life over to God or a power greater than ourselves. It is simple, but it is not easy. A price has to be paid. And the price is this destruction of self-centeredness and, you know, as I thought about the 12th step, like you can't do the 12th step being self-centered. It's a pretty unselfish thing to do, to take someone through the step, waste your time. And you know what? They may not even go through it all. Like they may bail on you here and there, and it may like be a nuisance. And then you have to deal with this person and you don't know how to deal with blah, blah, blah. But like that is also the part of working with others, is that it shreds at our selfishness. If we're doing it for real, if we're using, like it said right before, if we have a belief in the power of God, plus willingness, honesty, and humility, this is a simple thing to work with others, and to pass on this message, and to serve one another. It is simple, but it's not easy, and a price does have to be paid. And I feel like I could preach a sermon all of a sudden. So sorry, but it's just like, how can I not think of Jesus here, of just being like, he had paid the ultimate price. And we believe God here, Jesus, laid down his life, for others, so that they could have life. And so to me, that's the ultimate example. And again, for me as a Christian, it's like, I am called to be like Jesus and to model after his way, after his example. And so to me, it's such a beautiful thing. Of the word Christian actually means little Christ. So I get to be little Christ, which seems so daunting. But, you know, just trying to pass on whatever I can, this light that I've received, because it is so good and has changed my life. All right. Oh my gosh. How far am I along with this, guys? Yeah. Okay. Here we go. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountain blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend, the doctor, to ask if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. Finally, he shook his head, saying, "Something has happened to you, but I don't understand. But you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were." And then I'm going to jump forward here where it says, in the next paragraph, Bill's saying, "While I lay in the hospital, the thought came that there were thousands of hopeless codependents who might be glad to have what had been so freely given to me. Perhaps I could help some of them. They in turn would work with others." And I love that of just like, it's already this like light bulb goes on for Bill. He's like, oh, wow, I'm going to work. If I were to work with, one or two people, and then those people work with one or two people, and then those people work with one or two people, all of a sudden you have this amazing ripple effect that we actually see from Bill's story. Like, that's the whole point. If Bill decided to just keep this amazing recovery for himself, this freedom that he found, if he just kept it to himself, we wouldn't have AA. We wouldn't have this book, perhaps. Or maybe someone else would do it and it would be fine. But like, it's just, I think that that's one thing that really blows my mind in like the simplicity of it, but like how incredible it is to be able to pass on this message of hope. And, as he's sitting there, I'm going to keep going actually. I need to keep going. Okay. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Particularly was it imperative to work with others, as he had worked with me. Faith without works is dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the codependent. For if a codependent failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely control and fix again. And if he controlled and fixed, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. And like, you just see all of a sudden his like this life or death, this vitality to this work. And I realized, if you know me, I will highly recommend anything to you that I think is amazing. Whether it's like, hey, you got to go to this place, they have the best coffee ever. Trust me, you want to go there. Or like, hey, I just visited this food truck and it's going to blow your mind. Like, you need to get there yesterday. Or, hey, I watched this great Netflix thing on tadpoles, and you may not think tadpoles are really cool, but oh my gosh, they're amazing. Did you know they become frogs? And so it's like, if I can be so passionate about really, really like minor things that really truly don't matter and are not life or death, and I've had this experience with God and like being set free and starting to see these promises that we're already seeing and reading, if this has happened to me, in fact, I'm going to want to pass this on because I know myself and I know my mind and I know the process and the growth that's coming and is here already. And how can I not want to pass that on to someone else, knowing that they are struggling, knowing that they're maybe hopeless, because I was that way. I was hopeless. I was helpless. I didn't know if this brain could ever change. I didn't know if my relationships could ever get better. I just saw the downward spiral that I was headed for. And so I reached out and I started this process, and it really has changed my mind. 5 minutes. Thanks, Vicky. And it's changed things. And so I think, that's important. All right, I'm gonna keep going because I know I have 5 minutes, and there's just some things I think that are really important. I love this part too, where it says, skipping down a little bit through the page of page 15, I was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to chaos create. But I soon found that when all measures failed, work with another codependent would save the day. It is a design for living that works in rough going. And it's like, I believe this promise to be true, and I've seen it in so many people's lives, and I've seen it begin to, bubble up in my life. And it's like, man, when I'm feeling sorry for myself, when I'm stuck in resentment, which was very tempting and overwhelming on Monday and Tuesday morning for me, I reached out, not even just to my sponsor, but I reached out to my sponsee, and I said, hey, like, how are you doing? How are things going? Oh, I know you're moving. You want to talk about that? Or is this really stressful or whatever? But working with another person, again, just gets me out of my own self-pity, gets me out of my own inner workings. And it like asks me to like trust God, first of all, as I reach out to people and ask that God would somehow use me within someone else's life. But it connects me with others and connects me with God. And that's really the name of the game with this recovery life of being a Christian, of LifeLab, is to plug into God, because he's our power source. And we recognize that we are powerless over someone or something, over places, people, and things. And we need God. And so I have to skip ahead here. I love this next paragraph, the last one, that talks about all of the promises that come true. Like, it talks about the joy of living we have even under pressure or difficulty, seeing hundreds of families set their feet in the path that really goes somewhere. Feuds and bitterness of all sorts are wiped out. Like, there's amazing promises here. And it's all founded at this crown of the last step of working with others. Like that, we have to get to that point. We can't just stay in 1 to 12. We can't just stay in this place. The Bible talks about like being a light hidden underneath a bowl on top of a hill. Like, there's no point. But when you lift off and that light comes out, then it actually can light up a ton of places. And so I think it's daunting often, and this is the thing I guess I'll wrap up with, is that it can be so daunting because it feels like, who am I to be a light to someone else? Like, who am I to like take someone through such important work that changed my life? And I think the beautiful thing is that it's like, well, I get to follow God. God is actually the one that is going to do the work. It is not my job as a sponsee or as a sponsor or as a disciple of Jesus or as a pace setter. It's not my job to be God to them. That's actually the opposite of my job. My job is to point them to God. My job is to be able to bring this work to light by I believe, the Holy Spirit, or just the Spirit of God, to enlighten and illuminate everything, so that maybe by chance that can be his light pouring through me. So don't sweat it. Do the 12th step. Be a pacey. Go make disciples. It's going to not only completely revolutionize like your life and bring you life over and over and over again, but it also does a great work for people like us. That's where we all started, and to be able to pass that hope on to others, because there is a really, really hopeless world out there that desperately needs to know God to be able to plug into. All right, that's it. I'm probably right at the end. So thank you for listening to me today.